I don't know when it was rated, but it was.
The very first day it was built, which was about what? 2 years ago. We went over that bridge the whole of the handle.
Yeah, the little kid left.
I'll go and get a real one. Step back to the kitchen.
What have you got this time?
Now, you know the tradition, folks.
Yeah.
Fire on a fancy face, great chieftain of the pudding race. I wouldn't have you track your place. Bench strike for fair. Will when you're worthy of grace. The slang's my ear. The groaning trencher there you fill. Your hardies like a distant hill. The pin would help to mend the mill in time of need, and through your skin, dews distill like amber weed. This knife, see rustic labour dicht, and cut you up ready slick. Trench in your gushing entrails brisk like any ditch, and then, oh man, what a shit. Leaking, rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and stride, you'll take the hindmost on, they ride till all the bellies are sweat like live, like the rye, we think it comes. It's him. The door is French for woo, or oleo that would stow a shoe. Or fricassee would make you spew with perfect skinner, look down with sneer and scornful view and sick a dinner. Beal, see him all as trash, as much as a leather trash. A spinel shank, a good whiplash, if even it, through bloody flood the field to dash, oh, no one fit. But Mark, the rustic, haggis fed, the trembling enterprise comes his friend, clapping his wailing eve a blade, he'll make it whistle. And arms and legs and heads you'll sneds like taps of bristles. So, the powers for making mankind of care and issue out the bill of fair old Scotland. That's the ace skinking whale that drinks in luggies. But if you wish a grateful prayer, here a haggis. I'm very grateful to all those that I've captured. And, it's not easy. So, without further ado, I think Davy is going to say the Celtic grace for us. Thank you very much.
Sorry, it's been somebody meat and can eat, and somebody name not want it. But we can eat, and we can eat, so let the Lord be thanked.
Amen. I didn't know Ian when he was a smoker, but I know that he truly loved it because of the bitter resentment and condemnation he has for it now. I ran into Ian a couple of days after New Year and was so excited to be able to tell him that I'd quit. Not only because I knew he'd be pleased, but also because I would finally be free of his nagging. He was delighted and congratulated me, and he asked how long I'd been free of nicotine. And I said it had been 72 hours and listed an array of strange withdrawal symptoms I was having, complaining that they could last for 3 months. Great, he said, you can do the immortal memory. I've been so keen to tell him that I'd quit that I'd forgotten the golden rule. Hide from Mr. Wilson for the first 2 weeks of January. After the initial panic and heart palpitations subsided, I asked myself, what do the words immortal memory currently mean to me? Immediately I thought of Mrs. Mary Ann Morrison. Burns is remembered and commemorated every year across the globe. Frank gave him the whole 18 minutes a couple of years back. Ian Wright gave him at least 15 last year, so I'm sure he won't mind sharing the stage with Mrs. Morrison for this year's immortal memory. Mrs. Morrison was a private lady who didn't generally enjoy talking about herself. If she was here, she would have tried to talk me out of this. Nonetheless, she was the only possible subject for this speech. At 94 years old, Mrs. Morrison was not only our oldest resident, she had also lived on Knoydart the longest of any of us, having moved here from Harris 57 years ago in 1961. She had seen it all, and her memories of it were as clear as on the days that she made them. As a community, our memories of Mrs. Morrison are centred on our visits to Milburn, and being introduced to her was a significant part of the Knoydart initiation. Stephanie commented to me the other day that when a newcomer went to meet Mrs. M for the first time, she had an incredible knack for knowing all kinds of details about them before they had crossed the threshold. She was the queen of the Knoydart grapevine in that she knew all the current hot topics but was never the subject of any of them. She also had the wisdom to take gossip with a pinch of salt and avoided making judgments. Steph interviewed Mrs. Morrison 19 years ago for a school project in which she said that her favourite game as a child was playing houses. She had an old kettle and crockery and shared tea parties with her friends. This continued throughout her adult life. Bernie will always remember Mrs. Morrison for her hospitality and says as soon as you walked through the door you were told to sit down, given a plate of sandwiches, a cup of tea and a dram. And as Dave Marriott said to me, a Mary Ann dram was half a pint. The mixer was the size of the dram and the spirit was the size of the mixer. There was no refusing refreshment. If you declined one, another was offered in its place. And dogs were as warmly welcomed as people. Both of ours associated Mrs. M with cuddles and digestives. Hospitality overwhelmed me on my visits to Milburn. It was physically impossible for me to leave Milburn without a chocolate biscuit. And after I left, I often found a second one that had been hidden in my coat pocket. Mrs. Morrison wasn't a smoker, but I had my own ashtray. Take note, Mr. Wilson. Some of my favourite visits were the ones where we were alone together, and I would ask her to translate English to Gaelic, and she would laugh at me trying to pronounce it, no doubt all the while thinking bloody Sassenach. Sharing a dram together at Christmas, her laughing at how crap the Dow tartan is, her being so excited when I took my dad to meet her, are all memories that I will cherish, and I hope as I read this I am prompting you to retrieve your own little gems. The lady herself told me that Tommy was her favourite visitor, and one of his fondest memories is of the photographer Murdo MacLeod visiting Milburn. Mrs. Morrison wasn't keen when he arrived and gave him that look that spoke 1,000 words. But then Murdo started chatting in Gaelic, and within 5 minutes she was laughing away, holding her china dogs and posing for him for photos. I've put copies on the table so that you can see the before Gaelic and after Gaelic shots. One of Jan Marriott's favourite memories dates back to when her and Dave were running Pier House. They had decided to start serving takeaway fish and chips on a Friday evening. The community were really excited to have a takeaway, and the phone was red hot with orders. And then Mary Ann rang and asked for chops and roast potatoes. Sandy wasn't keen on fish and chips, and every Friday Mary Ann phoned and asked for a different meal for him, none of which was me. Mrs. Morrison will be remembered by many for her sharp memory, and her earliest memory was from 90 years ago when she was 4 years old. She was walking with a neighbour to the other side of Harris, and she said that she thought she'd remembered it because she was so happy to be there. She was always pleased to talk about her homeland, and whilst we feel she belonged to Knoydart, her heart belonged to Harris, where she is now at peace. I'm not completely disregarding Burns in this speech. By fate or chance, he penned a love song called Mary Morrison, which accurately depicts our Mary Ann, and I will recite it to you now. I wasn't lucky enough to be born Scottish, and marrying into the Scottish family was the closest that I could get, so forgive my Lincolnshire pronunciation. I take consolation in the thought that Mrs. Morrison would have found this very amusing, and it could be worse. I could have tried to sing it to you instead. Oh Mary, at thy window be, it is the wish, the trysted hour. Those smiles and glances let me see, that make the miser's treasure poor. How blithely would I bide the store, a weary slave frae sun to sun, could I the rich reward secure, the lovely Mary Morrison. Yes, dream, when to the trembling string, the dance gave through the lighted hall, to thee my fancy took its wing, I sat but neither heard nor saw, though this was fair, and that was braw, and yon the toast of the tune, I sighed and said among them all, ye are na Mary Morrison. O Mary, canst thou wreck his peace, where for thy sake would gladly die, or canst thou break that hurt of his, was only fought is loving thee. If love for love thou will na gie, at least be pity to me shown, a thought ungentle canna be, the thought of Mary Morrison. Mother to Kenny, Jessie, Kirsty, Dundo, Rena, John Murdo, Peggy and Teeny, to me and many others, Mary Ann Morrison was the grandmother of Knoydart. Visiting Milburn was like visiting family, which means so much when family are far away. She was irreplaceable and unforgettable. We were privileged to know her, and she will be immortalised through our memories of her. As she would say, that's the way. Can we all please raise our glasses, please? To Mrs. Mary Ann Morrison.
As you all know earlier on, Ian Wilson has told you that he's caught up with technology. No longer the days of January from hiding from that long wheelbase Land Rover. Get a message on Facebook now. So I'm going to keep these few words short, just like myself. And it's called The Saxon Lass. Upon a brae, a Saxon lay. No, upon a brae, a Scotsman lay, a Saxon lass beside him. His hand did stray to make the play, but Shelley she did chide him. O Saxon lass, you've blocked his pass, but his passion you'll never extinguish. For a Scotsman true, his yen aim in view is to fraternise with the English. So let's all raise a glass to the lassies of Knoydart, past and present. Slanger. Thank God that's done it.
It's been a tradition of Ian in the past, I think, to find the youngest gilly and the newest barmaid to do these toasts. So there's traditionally been quite a lot of stuff about the men spending all the time in the pub, being out late stalking, getting home in the small wee hours. But I think the older men of the community have been a bit neglected in the toast to the laddies over the years. So I thought I'd just mention, I've got the wrong glasses on, a few little things about that. It's hard for us now to whinge about the men being in the pub all the time. It's hard for us to complain about them coming in late off the hill, stinking of whatever it is that they've been up to, because they're all in by the time countdown comes on. Only waiting for the post to come, waiting for their mail order Viagra to have winged its way across the seas through their various internet connections that they're doing. I don't want to slag them too much, you have to do a bit of that, but we have to remember the value to the community of our older laddies. They know how to do everything, even if the knees aren't up to it anymore. And this has been so useful. I was reminded, particularly last Easter Sunday, when the pipeline fractured, we knew exactly what time all that had happened, because somebody had got up at 1 for a pee, but the lights were still on. Another older gentleman told me that he'd got up at 2 for a pee, and the electric was still on. I bumped into another a little bit later on in the day. Well, I was up at 3, the lights were still on. And it suddenly occurred to me that from our older men in the community, we've got a 24-hour watch. Absolutely fantastic. And fair play to the lads today who've been out in the snow while we've been busy, some of us in the hall, and the men too, getting those transformer back up and running. Totally relied on to move heavy objects in harsh weather, and to brag about different kinds of machinery that they've got and how many axles there are on various trailers, things that totally pass me by. But it's so nice to be here tonight and to see all the lads of the community here, some of the wee ones right through to grandpas. Have we got any great grandparents here tonight, possibly? Some soon-to-be granddads. It's all very exciting. And it's nice to see that whole range of men supporting each other in the community with all the various jobs they've got, young and old. So I'd just like to say, on behalf of the lassies of the community, whatever your age, stature, shape and size, we do appreciate all the jobs that you do for us. Sorry, I didn't actually mean to have that much innuendo in there. So, can you raise your glasses?
Oh, the herds the wind can blow, I dearly love the west, for it's there the bonny lassie lives, the lass that I love the best, where wildwoods grow and rivers row and honey's the hill between. Aye, but day and night my fancies flit as ever way my Jean, for I see her in the dewy flowers, I see her sweet and fair, I hear her in the tuneful birds, I hear her chant the air, for there's no bonny flower that springs by fountain, shaw or green. And there's no a bonny bird that sings, but minds me o' my Jean. For I've seen her in the dewy flowers, I hear her sweet and fair, resounding in the tuneful birds. I hear her chant the air, for there's no bonny flower, shaw or green, and there's no a bonny bird that sings, but minds me o' my Jean.
Thank you. Yes, round of applause for the shirt.
Yes, time and Ian Wilson caught up with me. And yeah, I ran out of excuses. Yeah. A toast to friendship. But why did Ian ask me to do it? I mean, I couldn't figure that one out. Because I'm the most popular guy in Knoydart? No. The best public speaker? Definitely not. It might be that I'm just too lazy to have enemies. It just takes up too much energy. It's much better to have friends. I did Google friendship, and it gave me quite a list of very formal definitions. And I would like to share a few with you, quite a few. Friendship is a relationship of mutual affection between people. Okay? Friendship is a stronger form of interpersonal bond than association. Blah blah. It's all very formal, and yeah, true. I would like to compare friendship with just going on holiday. It can be adventure, it can be fun, stressful, relaxing, or it can even go nowhere. Well, that's like having a holiday break at home. That can also be rewarding. This toast is dedicated to 3 groups of friends. Firstly, the ones that's no longer with us. We remember them often. And some days we wear their shirt and we live life for them as if they were here. My friend Thomas would have enjoyed this tonight. Secondly, to all our current friends sitting here, maybe not here. Well, that's all I'm going to say about that. And lastly, to the friends we have not yet met. We may laugh and we may cry and we may have fun, but most important, we will share these experiences together, to whomever that may be. Please raise a glass to friendship.
Friendship.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you do that?
We now have a crowdfunding campaign. If you go to the internet, you'll find it under crowdfunding and Knoydart and whatever else. Quite simply, I killed and not killed.
Good God, no.
Cable setters, the tatty and knee peelers, the cooks, who a beautiful meal we've had, the servers, the musicians and the speakers, and it's not easy to get up and stand in front of people and talk, and I know how difficult it is to get what to do. I'm very, very grateful to everybody for doing that, and thank you very much indeed. It's been It's been a privilege to stand here. Thank you all.
Thank you.